for us, it's really about understanding the trends before they happen, and then social media is just a way that actually captures it. But it's not by an accident that a lot of the hot brands that are trending that are only sold at Sephora are on TikTok. I mean, there's a method to the madness with our incredible merchandising and marketing teams. But certainly that has, I think, democratized beauty, right? And the conversation around beauty. I mean, I always joke that, thanks to brands like The Ordinary, my 14-year-old now knows what niacinamide is. And I couldn't even pronounce that when I was her age. So certainly it's, I think, opened up the appetite, the conversation around it, and especially around skincare. I think what Instagram did for makeup, certainly TikTok has done it for skincare.
So I know you've been with Sephora for a very long time, almost 19 years, I believe. But I want to take a step even further back. You had a really unique childhood and upbringing, and I'm wondering if you can share a bit about it with us today and how it shaped you as a leader.
Yeah, happy to, and thank you for having me here. So I was born in Iran and lived there until I was about 7 years old. My father was actually one of the pilots for the Shah. So in 1979, during the Iranian Revolution, we had to get out very quickly. And so my mother, my father, and I escaped to America. We came to Los Angeles, actually. I didn't speak a word of English. I was put into an ESL class, and I learned more Spanish than I did English. So I was like, not a lot of Iranians here. So I was there. We were there for about a year, but unfortunately, my parents were having a lot of problems. My mom was very young when she had me, and my father had a really hard time dealing with this fall from grace. So after about a year, we moved to Northern California, and my mom decided to go back to Iran with, I think, the hopes of bringing me back there and sending for me. But she got there and very quickly realized that the country had changed a lot and was really not a place to raise a little girl. So was trying to figure out what to do, was trying to get actually back to America at that point, but it was during the Iranian hostage crisis, so she couldn't get out, and my father was really not equipped to take care of me. So I ended up in the foster care system and lived in a group home for about a year, and then moved in with American foster parents when I was 10 in Northern California, and they raised me.
What do you think you take from those days? I'm sure it strengthened you in so many ways, but what do you kind of fall back on when you need to?
Yeah. I definitely know what it feels like not to belong, to feel different. I think it was Perlina yesterday who was talking about, watching a lot of television. I can relate to that as an immigrant. I learned all of my English from TV shows. I'm still a LA Lakers fan, and people are like, why? I'm like, that's how I learned English, from watching the Los Angeles Lakers games. And so I think just, feeling, different and looking different and speaking different, and especially, and also with my foster parents, they didn't look like me. And that's, I think it's really shaped me who I am as a person, but also who I am as a leader. And I really, truly believe in bringing in different thoughts and diverse ideas. And, I think for the most part, people don't get up in the morning and think, I'm going to do a bad job today. Like, everybody has a story. Everybody wants to do good. And, I think that as long as leaders, we're welcoming to that, it's really, really important to me. And I think, it's not to say that, you're going to take everybody's opinions and always do what everybody says. Ultimately, your job as a CEO is to set the strategic vision and to create focused priorities and to remove obstacles. But how can you get there if you don't bring in diverse thoughts?
So I'm going to pivot to the business at Sephora, and I mentioned some of the growth, but we've seen so many different patterns in consumer behavior over the last few years. What are the trends that are driving growth at Sephora today?
Yeah, like you said, I've been there a long time, and so I've been through all of it, through YouTube, through Instagram, through and obviously TikTok is a big part of it, through social for sure. It's for us, it's really about understanding the trends before they happen, and then social media is just a way that actually captures captures it. But it's not by an accident that a lot of the hot brands that are trending that are only sold at Sephora are on TikTok. I mean, there's a method to the madness with our incredible merchandising and marketing teams. But certainly that has, I think, democratized beauty, right? And the conversation around beauty. I mean, I always joke that, thanks to brands like The Ordinary, my 14-year-old now knows what niacinamide is. And I couldn't even pronounce that when I was her age. So certainly it's, I think, opened up the appetite, the conversation around it, and especially around skincare. I think what Instagram did for makeup, certainly TikTok has done it for skincare.
Yes, anybody here who has teenage, tween daughters, yes, they're really into their skincare routine, and there's smoothies. What are smoothies, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know?
Well, yes, you have to mix it. You got to mix them all together.
They go in the store, they mix up a bunch
it all
of
together.
stuff.
Yes. That's how you get the glow with the moisturizer. It's a whole thing. By the way, I've been doing that for a long time. So these kids are hilarious. I'm like, but they're call it what you want.
Things, but well, okay. So speaking of kids, there's been a lot of talk at the conference about Gen Z and Zennials, millennials,
yes.
between this micro generation, which I didn't know existed. But I'm a part of, apparently. But I want to hear more about Gen Alpha. And what does Sephora know about Gen Alpha as a consumer?
Yeah, so I have a 14-year-old, so I definitely can relate. The thing for us is, first of all, we do not market to this audience, right? And so it is really important for us to continue to remain committed to marketing to the appropriate age. You're never going to see teenagers in our windows. In fact, I had a brand not that long ago who had a product that was not appropriate for a younger consumer, and we actually asked them to change the model because even though it's not our brand, we're not comfortable putting young kids selling retinoids and retinols in our window. So we do believe we have a responsibility to make sure that what we sell is age appropriate. We have over 25,000 beauty advisors across the United States and Canada who are highly educated. That has been the core in our DNA from day one. They are not commissioned. They are very unbiased. And so we do train on what's right for the skin depending on the age. And at some point, there's a responsibility of us as parents, like me as my 14-year-old, you will not catch my 14-year-old using retinol, right? And so, but it is incumbent on us, it's incumbent on our over 250, 300 brands to make sure that we're talking to the right audience at the right time about the right thing. So yes, there's been an influx of the younger generation coming into Sephora, and we really do our best to encourage them to use the age-appropriate products.
Okay. I want to ask you about the retail strategy. You're in the midst of revamping a lot of your stores. What is the strategy there, and why so much focus on the retail footprint?
Right. Well, we've always had a beautiful relationship between the digital and retail. So we started our e-commerce business in 1999, kind of ahead of our time, but the stores have always been the soul and the DNA of our brand. Our first store in 1998 was in Soho in New York, and it's now our #1 store across North America. So the fact that it has sustained over 26 years. Our first store in Canada opened 20 years ago in Toronto. So we took a step back post the pandemic, and I'll never forget, I was like, people aren't going to come back and use testers, and people are like within 3 seconds or putting everything, and I'm like, ooh, okay, let's slow it down a little bit here. So, I think that beauty's always been tactile, and then that relationship, with our beauty advisors and that relationship with each other as you're shopping Sephora. So we took a step back and we said, okay, our stores have been around for a long time, and our new stores look really, really pretty, but some of our older stores not so pretty. And so we said, what would that take? And I think, you hear a lot about retailers doing a store of the future, so it's very much a design element, and they'll take one store and it's design driven. Usually you have the design team who kind of leads that. We said, okay, let's take a step back and make this a merchandising driven project, right? And so how do people want to shop? What are the right brands? How should it position? Where does beauty to go and minis and more go now that 1 in 4 consumers are shopping with a mobile POS? Are they going to stand in a long wave like that? And what are the hot brands we want to pull forward? And so we created what we say the ideal map. And it's actually in a lot of the stores that you see today that have been built over the last couple of years. And we are going to go back over the next 5 to 7 years, and we are embarking on the largest capital project in the history of Sephora globally, and we're going to refurbish every single one of our stores. Because we feel that whether you're shopping in Boise, Idaho, or in Toronto, Canada, you should have the same beautiful experience no matter where you are.
I'm going to go to you guys for questions in a minute here, so please be thinking of them. But and one more question for you on the retail footprint side. You're also experimenting with kind of mini stores under 4,000 square feet in urban areas. You've done this before.
True,
Didn't quite work out. What's different this time?
Yeah, so I was part of that project years ago, and we still have a few of those around. We had an urban concept, and you know, our biggest learning was don't cut the assortment. I think what we did is we said, oh, we still have this big beauty studio and this cash wrap, but we'll just sell less brands. Turns out people want to buy product. And so we said, okay, let's take this back, and what would it take for us to have a store that is like about 15% smaller than our existing store, it's under 4,000 square feet, but still offer the exact same assortment. And so what we've done is we've reduced the backstage, and now we have more deliveries to that store. And then we also remove the traditional cash wrap. So everybody is at mobile POS, but if you want to pay cash, there's an end cap there that has this very small, end cap. We've reduced the area for services. We actually launched 3 this summer. We were like, let's see what happens. One in Queens, New York, one in Brooklyn, and one in Toronto at the Well. And they have far exceeded our expectations. I actually went to the opening at the Queens store, and you would have thought you were at a party. It was bananas. People were dancing. I'm like, this is amazing. And then the same day, I went over to the Brooklyn store, and this is crazy. In the Brooklyn store, you can walk 10 minutes to the left and be at a regular Sephora, walk 10 minutes to the right and be at a regular Sephora, and that store is killing it. It is over 60% above plan, and over 60% new beauty insiders signed up within the first month. So 6 out of 10 people walking in did not already have a beauty insider account, and there's 10 minutes either way. So we believe that this is a really, really exciting concept, that we're gonna look at more dense populations. This isn't gonna be thousands of stores, but when you think about New York, Toronto, Los Angeles, maybe even San Francisco, I think we're onto something here.
Great, we've got a question over here.
Betsabe, we met yesterday. First, for anybody who doesn't know, Artemis is a historical figure, Navy commander, fierce leader. You're living up to your name very well. It's fascinating. Please look that up. You've had a tumultuous childhood, and it's built resilience. It can also throw people off quite well, but you have turned to the other side of it, and it's made you a very strong female. How do you pass on those values to your children?
I asked that myself. She's asked how I passed that to my child. My husband also had quite a tumultuous upbringing. It's for a whole another time. But it's hard because, you know, we're both funny because I tend to be sort of like, I didn't have anything, so I'm going to give her everything she wants. And he's like, I had a hard life, and she's going to work for it. And I'm like, so we've definitely taken the 2 different approaches of how you raise children when you've had tumultuous childhoods. But you know, it's empathy. We talk about it all the time. It's empathy. I don't know how else to say it. We are constantly. I mean, it's, you know, be kind, say thank you. You know, be thankful. We make sure that she understands where she came from, but. You know, at the end of the day, you don't fully understand until you're older. I mean, I definitely also, I had a lot of anger around what my mom abandoned me and all this stuff. And until I was older and I had a kid of my own, I didn't fully understand the sacrifice that she made. So what I always tell my husband is you can't expect her to be any more than 14. And when she turns 15, you can't expect her to be any more than 15. Just keep teaching kindness and be empathetic, and really at the end, they'll get there.
Yeah. Other questions for Artemis? Let me see. Can we bring a microphone over here? We've got a couple. Can you raise your hands again? Oh, there you go. We'll start at the front.
Hi, Mona Sinha from Equality Now. I have a question about, I love Sephora, and I love that it's multi-generational. I love it as much as my kids do. How do you manage to keep that product mix so relevant to so many different customer groups? And now that I see that you're going into your own brand and you're developing sort of a Sephora line, How does that fit into the mix?
That's a good question, yeah. We've actually had Sephora collections since the beginning. When we launched Sephora in France was the first store. Even before that, when Sephora launched in Limoges, France in the 1970s, Sephora brand was its own brand. So that's always been part of our DNA. We're definitely stepping it up, I think. We look at it as an entry point. It's amazing quality, to be clear, for all of you with young ones. Sephora collection's amazing. It's part of LVMH, so it goes through the same rigor as every LVMH brand, just really good prices, so very good quality. So that's how we think about it. It's an entry point, great quality, and a way to enter the brand. And we're very proud of it because it's what you take home at the end of the day. You see the name. In terms of remaining relevant, listen, I mean, that is the secret sauce of Sephora, I'll tell you. So, if you take a step back and, when Sephora first came to America in 1998, similar to me, it was a bit of an outsider. And, a lot of the big strategics didn't want to work with us. There was the big department stores. And so just by sheer survival, we had to work with these little indie brands and start in the kitchen, and we would start early and we'd hear their stories and we'd be in there trying the formulations and give feedback. And any brand that's ever worked with us, I see one in the audience here, knows that we really love getting in there and getting in the kitchen. And that allows us to build a brand together in many ways. So you take for granted brands like Too Faced, Urban Decay, Stila, these brands that were, not household names 26 years ago. So I think that, to your question, it's really about getting in early. I see the CMO of Rare Beauty here, and I remember our very first meeting. It was Goop in a Jar and Selena Gomez, and it was like, whoa, and and her passion for the Rare Impact Fund and her belief in giving back. And so we were like, wow, great founder, great team, good product, wow, and they give back as well to an authentic cause that's very, very real to the founder. You could not ask for anything more as a merchant. Now let's get in the kitchen and figure it out together. So it really starts very early.
Did we have another question over here? Go ahead, please.
Hi, Suzanne Roy, I'm with McCormick & Company. And I was curious, well, first of all, thank you, because I have 2 bonus daughters and you make Christmas shopping. I was curious, as you look at your professional career with Sephora, what's the biggest bet that you made that you look back and say, that was the one?
For me personally, or for the company?
Whichever one you want, personally or professionally.
Yeah. Well, I can quickly answer both. I think professionally, it was when I asked to be the general manager of Sephora inside JCPenney. So at the time, I had a whole e-commerce background, and I was like, what do I know about running a P&L and JCPenney? And it was so amazing. I stepped in right during the Ron Johnson time, so it was very, very tumultuous at JCPenney. And I remember the CEO at the time, our CEO of Sephora, he sent me a note, and it just had one line, and it said, "Rome is burning, protect your house." And I thought, oh my gosh, what is going on? And I did, and I put my arms around the team, and we just focused and we went forward. And I'm very, very proud of what we delivered over the partnership there, which ultimately then resulted in a really, I think, deep understanding of how to work with another retailer. And I was very early on talking to Michal about the Kohl's deal. So I think professionally, I wasn't sure I should take that job, and I think it really sort of turned the tide for me. And then I would say for us, like, there's so many decisions, there's so many brands we've launched that, now again are household names, which is really, really exciting. But something that is, I think, meaningful to me and to a lot of the team was in 2020 when Aurora James reached out to us to become part of the 15% pledge. It was after the murder of George Floyd, and there was a lot going on, and we were at home alone on Zooms, and there were 6 women on this Zoom. And I'll never forget when we said, yes, we will be the first retailer to support the 15% pledge, and the commitment that we made. And back then, we only had 3% of our assortment being sold by founders of color, by Black founders. And today we've doubled that assortment, and we've actually reached 15% pledge in hair. So to me, it's a lifetime journey, and making a commitment to bringing founders of diverse backgrounds is so critical to me. I talk about this all the time, that I have a daughter who has curly, coily hair, and she has no idea how lucky she is because, back when I was younger, I didn't have the right products, but that's because people with hair like me weren't making brands for people like me, and I want to change that.
Very, very meaningful note to end on. We'll have to get your smoothie recipe later, but thank you so much for joining us, Artemis.
Thank you. Thank you.